I used to believe there wasn't anything life could throw at me that I couldn't handle. Stupid, right? I guess when you're 17 and your world has already been ripped apart once, you start thinking you're invincible. Dad's death gutted me in ways I didn't even understand at the time. One minute he was under the hood of that battered blue Ford we'd been fixing since forever, teasing me for holding the flashlight wrong, and the next he was on the ground, gasping for breath, clutching his chest like he was trying to hold himself together. I didn't move at first. I just stood there, useless, while the wrench slipped out of his hand and clattered onto the concrete. It wasn't until Mom came running out screaming that I realized it wasn't some cruel joke. It was real. We buried him 3 days later. Closed casket. The funeral was packed. Neighbors, old friends, even my middle school principal showed up, but it didn't make a damn bit of difference. He was gone. And in that hollow space he left behind, Mom tried to build something new. I just never expected her to do it so fast. 6 months. 6 months after Dad's funeral, she stood at the altar in a frilly white dress, tears in her eyes, not the broken kind but the happy kind, and said vows to a man named Tom. Tom, who smelled like sawdust and cheap aftershave. Tom, who tried too hard to be liked. Tom, who would never be my father no matter how many backyard BBQs he hosted or how many fake smiles he gave me across the dinner table. I wore a rented suit that didn't fit and a frozen smile that hurt my face, standing there like a prop while Mom acted like this was normal. Like we were a normal family moving forward. But nothing about it felt right. Tom moved into the house a week after the wedding, setting his heavy boots by the door where Dad's used to sit. He cleaned out the garage and called it reorganizing. He replaced the cracked leather couch Dad had loved with some hideous sectional from a clearance sale. Every corner of the house started smelling like a stranger. Like him. He kept trying to bridge the gap, offering rides, making lame dad jokes, inviting me to throw a football around like we were living in some low-budget sitcom. And I kept finding new ways to be gone. I started hanging out with people who didn't care where I came from. I stayed out later and later. I picked fights at school for no reason other than to feel something. Mom noticed, sure, but she didn't really see me. Not anymore. She was too busy building her new life with Tom, smiling like she hadn't buried the love of her life half a year ago. The fights between Tom and me started small. Sarcastic comments. Eye rolls. Doors slammed a little too hard. But it didn't take long for things to escalate. One night, after I stumbled in past midnight reeking of beer, Tom was waiting. He stood there in the dark kitchen, arms folded, blocking the stairs like he was some kind of prison guard. "You think you're a man?" he said, voice low. "Real men don't run from their problems." Maybe if he hadn't said that, maybe if he hadn't looked at me like I was a stray dog he'd been forced to take in, things wouldn't have exploded. But he did. And I lost it. I shoved him hard. Hard enough that he staggered back and hit the corner of the counter with a sickening thud. For a second, everything froze. His face twisted, not with pain, but with something worse, disappointment. That's when Mom came running in, her face white, her hands flying up to cover her mouth like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Get out," she said, voice shaking. "Just get out right now." I didn't argue. I grabbed my jacket and bolted into the night, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I spent that night at the bus station, curled up on a bench, watching the rats scurry along the tracks. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. And when I finally dragged myself back home in the morning, exhausted and frozen to the bone, the locks had been changed. I stood there for a long time, banging on the door, calling Mom's name, but no one answered. Through the window, I could see Tom's toolbox on the kitchen table, right where Mom's cookbook used to be. Like he was making it perfectly clear, this was his house now. And I wasn't welcome. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen. I had no idea how wrong I was. I didn't have anywhere to go. I spent the first few nights crashing at friends' houses, sleeping on floors, on broken futons, in cars that smelled like old fast food. Most of them didn't even ask questions, they just handed me a blanket and went back to playing video games or scrolling through their phones. Honestly, I don't think any of us knew how to deal with something real. I told myself I'd find a way back home eventually. That Mom would come to her senses. That she'd realize kicking her own son out for some guy she barely knew was insane. But days turned into weeks and the call never came. The texts I sent were left on read or ignored completely. Sometimes I'd get a few words, "You made your choice," or "We all need time," but it was never Mom's voice. It always felt like Tom's hand was the one guiding the phone. Eventually, my best friend's parents called a social worker. It wasn't about being a snitch, they were just scared. 17, technically homeless, no plan, no future. That's what I was. I ended up in a shelter for a while. It wasn't as bad as the movies make it out to be, but it wasn't home either. The cots were hard. The food was bland. Every night the air was thick with this heavy, choking sadness, like you could drown in it if you breathed too deep. Most of the other kids were just like me, people who fell through the cracks of families that were supposed to love them. Some were worse off though. A lot worse. I learned how lucky I still was. I still had all my teeth. I still had dreams. I still had anger, and sometimes that's all that kept me moving. I got a job bussing tables at a 24-hour diner 2 towns over. Long shifts, crap pay, but it was something. I saved every penny like it was oxygen. By the time winter rolled around, I had enough to rent a room above a mechanic's shop. It smelled like oil and old coffee, but it had a mattress and a door that locked. It was mine. I didn't hear from Mom again until Christmas Eve. I was walking home from work, freezing my ass off, when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped it. I wanted to answer. God, I wanted to answer. I wanted to believe she missed me, that she realized how badly she'd messed up. But then I remembered the locks. The silence. The way she looked at me that night, not like a son, but like a stranger she didn't know what to do with. I let it go to voicemail. Later, when I was sitting on my mattress eating instant noodles, I finally played it. Her voice cracked through the speaker. Hey, it's Mom. Just thinking of you. Hope you're warm. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. That was it. No apology. No offer to come home. Just a sad little ghost of a message from a woman I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd fall apart. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the cracked ceiling, feeling nothing. Empty. Hollowed out. Like part of me had died right alongside Dad. Then New Year's came. And with it, the storm. It hit our town hard. Ice on the roads, blackouts, freezing temperatures dropping lower than anything we'd seen in a decade. The mechanic who rented me the room left town to stay with family. I stayed behind, bundled in layers, sleeping with 2 coats on, teeth chattering. I thought I'd be fine. I thought I could tough it out. I was wrong. It was around 2 in the morning when the power finally cut out. No heat, no lights, just the kind of cold that makes your bones ache. I could barely move. Every breath felt like knives in my lungs. I wrapped myself tighter, trying to ride it out, but somewhere deep down, I knew I wasn't going to make it. That's when the banging started. Someone was pounding on the shop's front door, shouting my name. Over and over again. It was Tom. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe the cold was messing with my head, making me hear things. I pulled the blanket tighter around my face, squeezing my eyes shut, willing the noise to go away. But it didn't. The banging got louder, more frantic, the voice cutting through the howling wind outside. Open the door. Please, kid, open the damn door. It was definitely Tom. And he sounded desperate. I stumbled out of bed, legs stiff and clumsy from the cold, and made my way down the narrow stairs to the shop's entrance. Every instinct screamed at me not to open it. He was the reason I was here. He was the reason my life fell apart. But something about the way he was shouting, wild, panicked, not angry but scared, made me pause. My fingers trembled as I slid the lock back and pulled the door open. A blast of freezing air almost knocked me off my feet. Tom shoved his way inside, slamming the door behind him, snow clinging to his jacket and hair. His face was red from the cold, and for a second he just stood there, panting, staring at me like he didn't believe I was real. Then he said something I'll never forget. She's gone. His voice cracked right down the middle. Your mom. She's gone. The words didn't make sense at first. I just stood there, blinking, as the cold seeped deeper into my bones. What are you talking about? I finally managed to rasp out. Gone where? He shook his head, scrubbing a hand over his face. The ice, the roads were bad. She lost control. They tried to get her out, but his voice broke again, and he turned away, shoulders shaking. I stared at the floor, the oil-stained concrete blurring and swimming in front of me. It didn't feel real. It couldn't be real. 1 minute she was leaving me voicemails. The next, she was just gone. Tom dropped to the floor, sitting against the door like he couldn't hold himself up anymore. We sat there in silence, 2 broken people in a freezing, abandoned garage, the storm howling outside. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him, blame him for everything, for stealing my family, for pushing me out until I had nothing left. Another part, one I didn't even know still existed, just wanted to curl up and sob in someone's arms, even if it was his. She was on her way to find you, Tom said after a long time, his voice barely a whisper. We had a fight about you. About everything. She said she had to see you. Had to fix it. My chest hurt so bad I thought it might cave in. I wrapped my arms around myself, rocking slightly, trying to breathe through the pain. She was coming for me. She was trying. And now it was too late. Tom pushed himself up with a grunt and shrugged out of his heavy coat. Without a word, he draped it around my shoulders. I should have shoved it off. I should have told him to leave. But I didn't. I was too tired. Too broken. He moved slowly, awkwardly, setting up an old space heater he must have grabbed from his truck and plugging it into a backup generator. It hummed weakly to life, throwing a tiny pocket of warmth into the room. We huddled there together, two strangers tied by nothing but grief. For the first time since Dad died, I wasn't alone in my pain. For the first time, I saw Tom not as the enemy but as another casualty of the same war. Neither of us spoke much. There wasn't anything left to say. When the storm finally died down, the roads were still too dangerous to drive. We stayed in that garage all night, taking turns feeding the generator, trying to keep the heat going. Somewhere around dawn, while I was dozing off against the wall, I felt Tom's hand tap my shoulder. I jolted awake, heart pounding. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. "There's something you need to know," he said, voice low. "Something your mom never told you." I sat up straighter, dread curling in my gut. "What?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He looked down, picking at the frayed edge of his sleeve like he couldn't bring himself to look at me. And then he said it. The words hung in the air between us, heavier than the cold, heavier than the grief. I sat there frozen, the blanket falling off my shoulders, my heart hammering in my chest so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Tom didn't look at me. He just stared at his hands, like maybe if he didn't see my face, it would be easier to tell the truth. "What are you talking about?" I said finally, my voice raw and unfamiliar in my own ears. Tom exhaled a shaky breath. "Your dad, your real dad, wasn't who you thought he was. And neither am I." I shook my head, confused, angry. "You're not making any damn sense." Tom rubbed his face hard, like he was trying to scrub the guilt off. "I knew your mom a long time ago. Before you were born. We had a thing. She left me. Chose your dad instead. But it wasn't that simple. He stopped himself, squeezing his eyes shut like he couldn't believe he was actually saying this out loud. "You're mine." The world tilted. I actually felt it, like the ground was slipping out from under me. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not. We did a paternity test back then," he said, voice breaking. "Right after you were born. It came back, but your mom, she begged me to stay away. For your sake. For everyone's sake. Said you needed a stable family. A normal life. Said it would destroy everything if people found out." I stumbled back a step, nearly tripping over the cold concrete. My whole body was buzzing, shaking, like every atom was trying to fly apart. "You're lying." I wanted to scream it. Wanted to believe it. But deep down, something inside me cracked. I thought about the way Dad and I had never looked much alike. About the little moments, the doubts I'd buried because it hurt too much to question. Tom took a shaky step toward me. "I swear to you, I stayed away because she asked me to. I watched from a distance. Your birthdays, your school plays, your games. I was there. You didn't know." I pressed my hands to my head, trying to block it all out. This was insane. This wasn't happening. First Dad dying. Then Mom replacing him. Now this? Why now? I croaked out. "Why come back now?" His face crumpled. "Because when your dad died and you fell apart, I couldn't stay away anymore. I thought maybe I could help. Maybe it was my chance to fix what I broke." My knees buckled and I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor again, numb, shaking hollow. Tom crouched down but didn't touch me. "I know I'm the last person you want anything from," he said. "But I'm still your family. Whether you want me or not." We sat there for a long time. I couldn't even cry. I was just empty. Like someone had taken a knife and hollowed me out from the inside. After a while, Tom spoke again, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "There's more," he said. I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't take any more. But the words tumbled out anyway. "Your mom was planning to leave. Not just the house. Not just me. Everything. She found out something about your dad. About the life he lived before you were born." I stared at him, silent, waiting. "He wasn't just a mechanic," Tom said. "He was into some bad stuff. Things you don't walk away from." The storm outside had died down, but inside me, a hurricane was just getting started. "She was scared, kid," he added. "She didn't know who to trust anymore. She thought if she could get to you, if she could explain everything, you'd understand." My mind reeled, spinning faster than I could catch up. My dad, my real dad, my fake dad? Into what? Drugs? Gangs? Worse? Tom looked like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. Like the truth was too heavy even for him to carry. Finally, he said, almost in a whisper, "There's a box. She left it for you. She told me if anything ever happened to her, I was supposed to give it to you." I stared at him, too broken to speak. "A box? With what proof? Lies? Memories? All of the above?" Tom reached into his backpack and pulled it out. An old, battered shoebox tied shut with a frayed piece of twine. He set it down between us like it was a bomb. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just stared at it the way a prisoner might stare at the key to their own cell, too scared to reach for it. It's all in there, Tom said. Everything she wanted you to know. I reached out with a trembling hand, touching the box like it might burn me. And just as I started to untie the string, the front door of the garage slammed open. And a voice I didn't recognize shouted, "Nobody move. I'm not who you think I am. And neither was your dad." The door slammed against the wall so hard it rattled the windows. Cold air blasted inside, stinging my skin. Tom jumped to his feet, instinctively shielding me with his body. I barely had time to register the man standing there, a thick winter coat, a black beanie pulled low, a gun trembling slightly in his hand. His voice was sharp, frantic. "Where's the box?" My heart stopped. Tom lifted his hands slowly. "Take it easy," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Nobody's trying to stop you." But the guy wasn't listening. His eyes darted around the room, wild and panicked. He wasn't just looking for valuables. He was here for something specific. The box. My fingers still hovered inches above it. Without thinking, I shoved it under the blanket I'd been using, trying to hide it, but the movement drew the guy's attention instantly. "There," he barked, taking a staggering step toward us. "Give it here. Now." Tom didn't move. He stood firm between me and the gun, his hands still raised but his whole body tensed like a loaded spring. "You don't want to do this," he said lowly. "Think about what you're doing." But the man just snarled. His hand shook harder, the gun dipping dangerously with each twitch. "She was supposed to hand it over. It's not yours. It's not his." My mind reeled. She. He meant Mom. Somehow this nightmare was tied to her. To the secrets she never got the chance to explain. My mouth was dry, my heart beating so loud I could barely hear anything else. I didn't even realize I was moving until I saw Tom's eyes widen slightly. Just a tiny glance. Barely a flicker. But it was enough. I bolted. I sprinted for the back door of the garage, the box clutched to my chest under the blanket. A gunshot cracked through the air like a whip. I heard Tom shout. Heard something heavy crash to the floor. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. I tore through the snow, my sneakers slipping on the ice, breath burning in my lungs. The wind howled around me, the storm picking up again, blinding flurries stinging my face. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. I ran down the empty street, the world around me a blur of white and gray. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of town, an abandoned train depot, crumbling and half buried in snow. I stumbled inside, my legs giving out, collapsing behind a rusted metal beam. Only then did I finally look down at the box in my hands. It was battered, soaked through from the snow, but the twine still held. My fingers fumbled with the knot, numb and shaking, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might break my ribs. Inside, buried under a tangle of yellowed papers and a cracked photo frame, was a note. Handwritten. In Mom's messy, familiar scrawl. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. There are things about your family you don't know. Things I never wanted you to get hurt by. But you deserve the truth. You need to know who you really are." Taped to the back of the note was something else. A photo. It was old, faded, but unmistakable. Tom. My mom. And another man, someone I had never seen before in my life. And in the man's arms, a baby. Me. My stomach twisted violently. The man in the photo, the one holding me, he had a tattoo creeping up his neck. A jagged, black serpent. And somehow, deep in my bones, I knew that tattoo wasn't just for show. It meant something. Something dangerous. Something that was still haunting me now. I was still staring at the photo, heart in my throat, when I heard the soft crunch of footsteps on the snow behind me. Closer. Closer. I turned slowly, blood roaring in my ears, and came face to face with someone I thought I'd never see again. Someone I thought was dead. Dad. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I just stood there, staring at him like a ghost had materialized out of the swirling snow. Dad. Older, thinner, rougher than I remembered, but unmistakably him. Same stormy eyes. Same scar above his left eyebrow. "You're dead," I whispered. "We buried you." His mouth twisted into a bitter smile. "You buried an empty coffin," he said quietly. "Your mom," she lied. "To protect you." The world tilted again, worse than before. I felt like I was falling, free-falling through memories, through everything I thought I knew about my life. He took a slow step forward, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. "There's not much time," he said. "They'll come for you. They'll come for the box." "What's in it?" I rasped, my voice shaking. He looked around as if expecting someone to leap out of the shadows any second. "Evidence," he said. "Names, places. Proof of things people would kill to keep buried. Things I did. Things your mom helped hide." I shook my head violently. You're lying. This isn't real. I'm supposed to be dead, he finished for me. I know. It was the only way to keep you safe. My hands tightened on the shoebox. My entire body was shaking now, not from the cold, but from the weight of it all. You were into something bad, I said. Tom told me. Dad's jaw tightened. I did what I had to do. To protect you. To protect your mother. By faking your death? I spat. The bitterness tasted like blood in my mouth. By letting us mourn you? His eyes flashed with something that looked a lot like guilt. There was no other way. For a second, the only sound was the wind screaming through the broken windows. Then, softly, he said, you're in danger now. More danger than you can understand. But I can help you. We can disappear. Start over. You and me. My heart twisted. Once, not so long ago, I would have given anything for him to come back. For things to go back to the way they were. But now? Now everything was tainted. Broken beyond repair. I clutched the box tighter, the weight of it burning into my palms. Mom's last gift. Her last truth. And somewhere deep inside me, I knew what she would want me to do. No, I said, my voice stronger than I thought it could be. I'm not running. Not like you. Dad's face hardened. His mouth opened to argue, and then a shot rang out. I flinched, dropping to the ground instinctively. Dad stumbled back, a bloom of red spreading across his shoulder. Behind him, standing in the gaping doorway, was Tom. Breathless. Eyes wild. Gun in his shaking hand. Run, kid, he yelled. Get out of here. For a moment, everything moved in slow motion. Dad clutching his wound. Tom lunging forward. The box slipping from my hands, scattering its contents across the cracked floor. And me frozen, watching the only two men left in my life collide in a storm of violence and betrayal. I scrambled to my feet, grabbing the photo, stuffing it inside my jacket. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I ran into the storm, the snow swallowing me whole. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I could trust. All I knew was this: everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. And the only way to survive now was to uncover the truth. No matter what it cost. Even if it killed me.